Here is the best POLENE store you should visit. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Celesta. We talk about all things luxury shopping and handbags. If you love those things, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do post videos every week. Okay, so I have been to all 3 permanent locations for the POLENE store. There was a new pop-up location in Paris that opened up, I want to say like December 2023. So that one is the only location that I haven't visited, but I also don't know how long that location is sticking around for because it's supposed to be a pop-up. I thought it was going to go like away after the holiday season, but so far, to my understanding, it is still around. However, we're going to be scoring each store on the store design, the wait time, the pricing, and the stock available at the time that I visited. Obviously, the time that I visited, it's a little bit subjective because I didn't visit each store at the same time of the year, but I will talk through my experience and share which one I think is the best. So for the ranking, we're going to be giving it like a 1 to a 3. 3 being the best, 1 being the worst out of like all 3 of the stores. And then obviously we're going to like average out the scores at the end. Starting with the Paris location, this was the original first Paris store. I visited this December 2022, and we visited the store right after we got engaged, like the morning after. So this store actually has a really special place in my heart. And this was obviously my first time seeing the store in person. So it was just a really fun experience. I will say for pricing, this is going to be number 3. This is the best pricing there is. Obviously, because they're making the bags in Spain and shipping it to Paris, it's really not very difficult, especially because when you are importing items to different countries like the US or Japan, like you have to pay import duties. So there's no additional taxes to my understanding. Just for reference, I wanted to compare the POLENE Numero 10, which is the most popular bag. The European price in euros is 420 euros, which converts to, as of today, 454 USD. Compared to the US price for this bag is $580. Out of all 3 stores, I will say the design is probably my least favorite. It's still a beautiful store, don't get me wrong, but this wasn't as open as some of the other stores that they had. And other stores had like nicer features, which I'll kind of get into, but location-wise, this was great. It was very walkable. I noticed some of the other locations, they're in more prominent shopping areas versus this POLENE location was kind of off to the side a little bit. It wasn't difficult to find. It was still very walkable, but when I am shopping in stores and trying on bags and creating content and all of these things, I do look for like big mirrors. And if I remember correctly, there were only 2 big mirrors to use. And the day that I went, it was, I think, raining or cloudy at least. So there wasn't a lot of natural sunlight that could come in, but they did have really big windows. The store is kind of like an L-shaped design, so it just didn't feel as open compared to the other stores. The wait time, this was back in 2022, obviously when POLENE wasn't as popular, and now they do have a second location in Paris. So I would also assume that, like, given that there's 2 locations, that the store is probably like the wait time is probably a little bit less compared to before. But when I went in 2020, end of 2022, the sales associate said that people wait like max like 30-40 minutes. When I did leave the store, the line was about like all the way to the end of the building, if that makes sense. So it wasn't as long compared to the other stores that I've seen. So for the wait time, we're going to give this a 2. Last but certainly not least, in terms of stock, I also have to give this a 2 because when I did go during Christmas, so I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that, like, you know, during Christmas, you're just not going to have the most stock available, especially with all the tourists and like, the factories being shut down and like all of this stuff. So I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, which is why I gave them a 2. But when I did go, they didn't have the most bags available. So the Paris location that I visited, we're giving them a total score of 8 out of 12. Next location I visited was New York. I visited the New York store July of 2023. Mentally, this is my favorite store out of all 3 POLENE stores, but we'll kind of have to I guess we'll have to look at the scoring to see how it ranks. But starting with the pricing, I'm going to be honest, we're giving this a 1 out of 3. Purchasing a POLENE bag at the New York store in the US is the most expensive location to be purchasing a POLENE bag. Not only do you have to pay the price of the bag, which is more expensive compared to Europe, you also have to pay the additional New York sales tax, So that ends up being, I think the New York sales tax is around like 8% or something like that. So you also have to add on that price. The only difference with purchasing from the New York store compared to literally purchasing it at home on your laptop is the fact that you don't have to pay the $20 shipping. So for example, for the numero dis we mentioned in Europe, even with the USD conversion, it would have been 454 USD if you bought it in Paris. And here in the US, if you were to buy it at the US store, it would be $580. So that's a $130 price difference just by buying it here in the US. The store design and location, though, I do have to give them a 3. They're located in Soho. There's plenty of shopping to walk around in. And I just found the area just to be like really fun and walkable. I do really like the New York store design. I found it to be the most open. They had the biggest windows. They had a lot of mirrors. It just felt a little bit more warm and welcoming. There's plenty of boyfriend seating. And I will say the thing about the New York store that stands out to me the most is the fact that they have this machine that takes the scrap materials and they can make keychains, SLG, like small little like key pouches and things like that. And you can get them heat stamped. So I found that even if you weren't ready to like fully invest in a Polene bag right then and there, you could still get like a little keychain or a little pouch that kind of commemorates your visit to the store. And you can't get this online. You can't find it at any other store. You can only do it at the New York store. So I found that that like really makes the New York store stand out to me the most because they have this machine. For the wait time in New York, I also have to give this a 3. This is obviously a little bit subjective because I did go 4th of July week on a Friday morning and there was no line. We were there probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes after opening. There was still no line. The sales associates did say that it can get to about like 30 minutes or so. And I know when they first opened, I think there was like a heat wave or something like that, or there were really bad fires. I think that's what the sales associate was saying. And even then, like people were still waiting in line, but the max that they've heard people are waiting like an hour 20. But I was very, very surprised when I went that there was still no line. So for that, I have to give it a 3. And last but not least, in terms of stock, I also have to give this a 3. Again, very subjective. But when I did go, they had every bag that I wanted available. I remember the Nod was the newest bag that they had. For the Nod, I knew I wanted to get it in kind of like the camel color with the white contrast stitching, and they had it available. I believe that bag had only launched a week or 2 before I went, so I was very surprised that they had that. They also had the seam in the canvas version, and they even had the tonka in the light green color, which I have. And all of these are relatively new styles, so I was very surprised when I went that they had all of these bags available. This gives the total score 10 out of 12 for New York. And last but not least, when I visited the Tokyo store, I visited November of 2023. I literally visited on Thanksgiving Day. Obviously, in Japan, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving Day, so it's just like a random Thursday to them. But I was very surprised at how long the line was. I have to give the wait time for this store a 1 because when I was talking to the store manager, she was saying that people typically wait an hour and a half to 2 hours to get into the store. That to me is wild. I waited an hour and a half at Goyard and I was like, I don't know that I'm going to do that again. This by far has to be the longest line I've ever seen for Polene. I have seen some TikToks where it says if you go in the evenings, the line is a little bit better. I did go first thing in the morning and like the first people in line who are waiting at the store even before the store opens, they must have been standing in line since probably like 9 a.m., 8:30 a.m. Like it was crazy. I will give the pricing a 2 out of 3. When I did go in November, the yen was very low compared to the US dollar. So when I was actually doing the conversion, it was the cheapest place to buy a Polene bag, which was very shocking to me because typically Europe is like the cheapest place to buy like European luxury goods. And Asia is typically the most expensive. So I was very surprised that with the yen conversion, it was actually the lowest. However, since the most recent price increase back in January, it is now the second cheapest place to buy Polene. It is cheaper than US, but it is more expensive than Paris. So just for the same reference with the Polene numero 10, it is 81,000 Japanese yen, which converts to $538 USD, which is still cheaper than $580 USD if you were to buy it here in the US. In terms of the store design and location, I have to give this a 2. It is in a very nice and walkable area. There's plenty of designer stores around, but it is kind of like tucked away in an alley. I didn't find it hard to find at all. I also really liked that the store was quite open and they also had 2 floors. The second floor was really just the number 10 and the like jewelry line that they had, but they had an entire wall of just mirrors. So this is great if you are vlogging, if you are, trying things on, you want to try on different sizes, things like that. I think that that is great. I will say the store does get quite packed, obviously, because the line is an hour and a half, 2 hours long. They do pack in a lot of people in the store. Last but certainly not least, in terms of stock, unfortunately, I have to give this a 1. This is a little bit subjective because the store had just opened 2 months prior and I went around like holiday time, but they had the least amount of stock available. When I was talking to the store manager, she was saying that if I had come in the day before, they did not have any Polene number 10s at all. And that's obviously one of the most popular bags. So imagine waiting in line for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and they didn't have the bag that you were looking for. I would be rushed. So obviously when I went, they did have the number 10s available. They just got a shipment in, but I speculate that it is stuck in like customs or import duties and like that kind of thing. Which is why the Japan store doesn't get shipment as quickly. That's kind of my speculation, and it might have gotten better now that the store has been open for almost 6 months now. But yeah, at least for when I went, I have to give it a 1 for the stock. That brings the total score for the Japan store as 6 out of 12. So based on my like very subjective ranking, we're giving the New York store the best. It is the best store. Paris is the second best, and Tokyo is not the worst, but the one I would probably be the least likely to go out of my way to go visit the store. It's still a beautiful store. I think if you've been eyeing something for a while, I think it's worth the trip. I just think that it's not worth waiting 2 hours in line for, with the very high chance that whatever you're looking for isn't available in stock. In general, I think that each Polene store is absolutely stunning. My only con for each of the store, and I don't know if we're just kind of used to like this big box retail experience, but they do have iPads on like the walls or like kind of floating around the store to show you like what's available online. It's basically just like showing their website, right? And I was kind of shocked to hear that if they didn't have the bag available in stock, they would be able to order it for you, but you have to pay the ship. And I think the biggest thing that kind of like people are a little bit hesitant about when buying from Polene is the very steep shipping price. And I'm not gonna lie, that was the biggest reason why I like didn't want to pull the trigger on Polene to begin with, like back in like 2020. I think it's a little bit of a better customer experience. If I went out of my way to go to the store, if I waited in line an hour plus to wait in to look for a bag that I really wanted, I think that you should be able to order online and ship it to me for free. I know with Abercrombie, if you're looking for something specific, they don't have your size, whatever, they are very happy to help you order it and ship it to your house for free. That's kind of my only takeaway. Otherwise, if that's not a service that you want to offer, I would just not have the iPads floating around. I think that when you have the iPads available, people are able to see what the entire stock list looks like. And if they don't have it in the store, then people are going to be like, oh, well, actually, I wanted this. And then the only way to get that is to get it online. I think it's a little bit discouraged. Overall, I think that the New York store is probably the best store I would go out of my way to go visit, especially if you're looking to get a keychain and do that. I think that that was a really fun experience, even if you want to do it like with your friend. The Paris store, I mean, you have to visit Polene in Paris. That's also a great opportunity. I will say if you have extra time in Tokyo, definitely pop in and see if the line's long. But if not, I'd probably skip it. That sums it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if you ever visited any Polene store and how long you ended up waiting for that store. I think that that would be really helpful for people who are also thinking about visiting the Polene store in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll leave another video for you guys here, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!